Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video, we're making an interactive ball bearing maze game with our Cricut machine using craft foam to make the maze. This is a great little gift to make, and it's really fun to give a chance to try out some new materials with your Cricut machine and make something that is a nice little challenge to play with. So let's see what we're going to need to make it. To make this project, you will need either a light grip or a standard grip, which are the green ones, Cricut mat to cut your cardstock and your acetate, plus a purple strong grip mat to cut your craft foam. You'll need cardstock in two different colours. I've gone for green and yellow. You'll need some acetate to make the windows that you can see through into the maze. This is the setting I'm using, but any acetate will do. If you don't have any acetate, you can use the clear protector sheet from an old Cricut mat. You'll need a pen to go in your Cricut to draw the maze out so we know where to glue it a bit later on. Any colour will do, but one that kind of matches the colour of cardstock that you're using will look a little bit neater. You'll need either a scoring stylus, which looks like this, or a scoring wheel if you've got a Cricut Maker or Maker 3. And this is so that we can make the box with our score lines in it. If you've got the Explorer 2 or 3, the stylus will work. You'll need something to cut your craft foam that's a little bit stronger than your regular cutting blade. So either a deep point blade, which are the ones in the black housing, and these can be used on the Explore or the Maker models. Or if you have a Maker or Maker 3, you can use the knife blade, which looks like this. The actual blade, you've got almost like a scale pot in there. This is the one I'll be using. I find personally for me, this cuts craft foam a lot better than the deep point blade. But of course, it's completely up to you what your preference is. And speaking of craft foam, you'll need one sheet of that. It looks nicest in a bright colour, but if you don't have any bright colours, any craft foam will do. This is the pack I'm using. I bought it on Amazon. It's 2mm thick. Comes in lots of different colours. So that's my foam. This one isn't essential, but if you do have a brayer tool or a rolling pin, then this is really helpful for getting your cardstock and your foam really well stuck on your Cricut mats. You'll need some glue or double-sided tape. This is the tape runner I use. I love it. It works really, really well. So that is what I will be using. And the glue I'm using is called Kalal, but any kind of glue that dries fairly quickly and really securely will work brilliantly. I've put it into these needle tip applicator bottles to make it a little easier. Again, optional but very helpful is some washi tape or masking tape or painter's tape, just some kind of low tack tape. Again, this is for the foam to help stick it down to your mat a little bit better. Finally, you'll need a ball bearing to go inside your maze. I bought this set on Amazon. It wasn't very much money. I definitely paid less than £10 for it with all these different sizes because I wasn't quite sure what I was going to need. But these ones work best with this maze. They're probably about 3mm, I would say. And they're nice because you can see them nicely. They're not too small. And they fit in the maze, and that is obviously quite important that they actually will go round it. All right, so I'm just having a little think. I'm pretty sure that's everything, apart from, of course, the free SVG cut file to create your maze. Now, one thing I will just say before I go any further is that whilst these are made as a little bit of fun, just be careful when giving them to children. I would recommend not giving them to small children just due to the small parts of these tiny ball bearings. If they were to rip open the cardstock, then obviously that's just a little bit of a risk having that metal ball bearing in there. But if you give it to older children that you know are going to be sensible with it, or of course the adults as well, then that'll be absolutely fine. Alright, so here is how to get the free SVG download to make this maze game with your Cricut machine. You can download the free cutting file for this project at craftwithsarah.com/free-SVGs or follow the link in the description of this video to go straight to the download page. The download comes in a zip folder and you need to unzip this before you can upload the files into Cricut Design Space. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, it's time to get the SVG file for the maze game into Cricut Design Space. Open up Design Space and start a new project, then go to Upload over on the left and then Upload Image. You can then either click Browse to find a file on your computer or drag and drop it in. Make sure you choose the unzipped version of the folder, and then the file to select for Cricut Design Space is the one which starts SVG in the file name. Click and drag it in, and this is what it looks like. Press Upload, and then click it to get the green border, and press Add to Canvas. It will load in at a suitable size to make. I don't recommend making it any smaller than this because you'll find that unless your ball bearings are so small you can hardly see them, if you make it any smaller than this, you'll find it really difficult for the ball bearings to be able to fit around the maze. So this is a nice size for my ball bearings, which are about 3mm big. If your ball bearings are bigger, then you will need to make this a little bit bigger, or if you just want to make it bigger anyway, then feel free to do that. If you are resizing it, just make sure everything is selected. Make sure your padlock icon at the top is closed, and then you can either resize it with the numbers up here by typing into the boxes, or you can click and drag. I'll just undo that, so I'm making mine at the original size. Before we start on formatting this design to make it suitable to cut, I just want to talk you through the different parts that make it up. Unlike the ball bearing games that I released a little while ago, where you had the little holes to slot the ball bearings into, this one is done a bit differently. So on that one, the front and the back of the box were all the same bit of cardstock, but on this one, because this is going to be bigger, that didn't work because it was bigger than the Cricut could cut. So I've changed it. So this time we've got the bottom of the box is here, and then the top will go on. There'll be a piece of card to stick at the bottom of the box to show some colour through the maze. And the maze you can see on here, we're going to be drawing with a pen, a Cricut pen. And that is so that we know exactly where to line our fun foam up. That was hard to say. To make sure everything's in the correct position. We've then got 2 red copies of the maze. This is what will be cut from our fun foam to give it some nice dimension to build up the walls of the maze for the ball bearings to get through. This all makes the top of the box, including these little pieces inside, and this will be cut from cardstock. And then finally, you've got a grey square at the bottom. This will be cut from acetate so that you can see through the window into the maze. Alrighty, so file formatting, let's get started on that. First, I'm going to click my design, and then at the top of the layers panel, press ungroup to separate out the pieces. Then look down the layers until you find the maze, which looks like a black drawn image of the maze. You can see it's highlighted on top of this yellow. We need to change this to a draw layer so that we can do it with the pen. And to do that, go under Operation, change it to Pen. You can change the colour of the pen in here if you want to, but it doesn't really matter because the Cricut doesn't actually know what colour you put in. For my video, I'm going to be drawing it in black so that it's really easy to see on camera what I'm doing. However, when you're making it, it would probably look a little bit nicer if you use a pen colour that's quite similar to the actual cardstock you're cutting it from. For example, if you're using yellow cards, you might want to use a yellow pen so that you can just about see the lines so that you can line everything up, but it means it's not super duper obvious like my black one might end up being. Alright, so now what I need to do is click again, and you see in my layers panel, this has selected my new draw layer and the yellow square underneath. Nothing else, just these 2. With those 2 layers selected, down the bottom of the layers panel, press attach. Attach is what tells the Cricut we want it to do the drawing on that yellow square. Next, we need to format the score lines on the base of the box. So we'll look down the layers panel again, and you can see down here we've got our second little mini group with an arrow, and in there are two pieces. We've got our green at the bottom, and then a piece which just looks like little black lines. These need to be changed to a score line. So under the operations menu again, change it to score. When you click away, you'll notice that these now look dashed, and that indicates that they are now score lines. Once again, we need to attach those score lines to the base. So I'll click it here, and you see this has selected both of those layers. They're both selected, and then press attach. And then that's all the formatting we need to do. If you want to change the colours, you can do, but just bear in mind that you do need to cut the two pieces which are currently red from craft foam, so make sure they're a different colour to everything else. And this one will be acetate, everything else will be cardstock. I'll do mine at the original colours, so let's just go ahead and press make. And then I've got all of my pieces here. If you want to, you can change the paper size in the menu down there. And then you will need to do that for every single colour you want to change. And then when it's all finished, go ahead and press continue to connect to your Cricut machine. Most of the layers are pretty easy to get out from cardstock, but I am going to give a little bit of extra guidance for the acetate layer and the fun foam layers. The craft foam that I'm using is A4 in size, so I'll change my paper to A4 down there. And then what I also want to do is move these pieces away from the edge a little bit. And this is because when using craft foam, it's a good idea to tape it with washi tape or masking tape to your cutting mat so that it doesn't move about during cutting. So it is a very thick material, so we want to use our strong grip mat and tape it down, and moving the pieces so that they're not quite against the edge just means there's that little bit of extra room to get them stuck down. Okay, so now I'll press continue. And we'll just take a little look at some of the cut settings. So my first one up here, this will be the one that I'm cutting with acetate. Cricut does have an acetate setting. If you click Browse All Materials up here, you can type in acetate and it will come up. However, I have never had success with that setting. I never, ever, ever have managed to get it to cut through using that. So I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to use my standard Cricut blade in my Maker 3, the one it comes with, and I'm going to use the craft board setting, spelled with a K, craft board. To find that, click Browse All Materials, type in craft, and then it will come up. I favorited mine because I use the setting quite a lot. So that's the one I will use for my acetate. That does 2 passes, so it will cut the square and then it will cut it again in exactly the same place. So don't worry if it looks like it's duplicating, it's supposed to do that. And then this one is my cardstock with a pen, so that's fine. These ones will all be cardstock, again, that's fine. I'm going to use my scoring stylus for this one. You can also use the scoring wheel. Just to show you how to switch the tools in case you're not sure, let's go heavy cardstock. By default, it's asking me to choose the scoring wheel, but if you want to switch it to the scoring stylus, if that's what you've got instead, click Edit Tools here, choose Scoring Stylus, and then Apply. When it gets to the craft foam, here we go, this is my red layer with the mazes. The material I'm going to use for this is actually foam. So type in foam, press enter or click the little search button, and it's called craft foam. And I found this one does tend to work pretty well with the type of foam that I'm using. So that's the one I'll use. And then it recommends the deep point blade, which is the one I showed you at the beginning of this video with the black housing. I've never had an awful lot of success with this one. I find that the blade kind of tears the foam a little bit, so you end up with jaggedy edges. So my personal preference, is to use the knife blade instead, which is only available for the Maker or Maker 3. If you have one of those and that's what you'd want to use, again, click Edit Tools, then you can change it to the knife blade in there and press Apply. It will ask you if you want to calibrate the knife blade. I've never actually done that and it seems to work just fine. But if you are having any problems with it not cutting or not recognizing the blade, you may just have to run through that calibration. Alright, so that's all my cut settings I'm going to use. Before we jump in and actually put together our little maze, I will just show you my little tips for putting your craft foam onto your cutting mat. Here's how to add your foam to your strong grip cutting mat to make sure it sticks really, really well and to give it the best chance of cutting. Take this off. That's my protector sheet. And then because I moved my little maze pieces along a bit, I don't need to put my foam all the way up to the edge. I can leave a gap. Just make sure that this does line up to wherever you've placed your maze designs in Design Space. If you've got one, use a brayer or rolling pin to go down, make sure it's really well stuck. Then we're going to add extra stability with some washi tape. Masking tape or painter's tape would work great too. Here's my washi tape. And I'll use this to go down every single edge to hold it to the mat extra securely. So a nice long piece. And this is why we moved the pieces in a little bit. So we've got room to put tape without going over the edge of the Cricut mat. So this is half on my foam, half on the mat. Get it really well stuck down. Then make sure nothing's overlapping. So I'll just need to break that bit off. And then go down every single side using that same technique. That's all 4 sides of my foam done with my washi tape nicely stuck. All my ends of the tape are stuck down well so they're not going to catch anything inside the Cricut machine. And this is now ready for me to feed in and get my pieces of the maze cut out. Here are all of my pieces of the maze cut out, including my acetate, which I know it's a little bit hard to see, my 2 layers of foam, and then all my cardstock. So we'll see how to stick it all together. Starting with probably gluing the acetate because this will take the longest to dry. Take your square cutout, turn it upside down. I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's the same both sides for me, but if your cardstock was perhaps different on each side, make sure you've got the bottom side. Take some glue or double-sided tape, but I find glue holds better and we really need this window to be stuck on there good. And let's just see, how close does it get to the edge? Pretty close. Okay, cool. Right, take your glue, go all the way along here, making sure there are no gaps. Because if there were any gaps in that glue, that gives the ball bearings a chance to escape and get lost, which we definitely don't want. And then take your acetate and put it on there. Gently push down the glue. Again, we're just making sure there's no gaps, but you want to try and make sure you don't smush the glue out so that it's visible on the acetate. I've done it a little bit on that corner, but I don't think that'll really notice. And then I'll leave that out the way to dry. And whilst that's drying, we can start on the base of the box. Now this is the piece that's got all my score lines on it. This is the side the Cricut scored, so I'll turn it over and then fold upwards towards myself along all of the score lines. They're quite narrow, so just be careful when you're doing it. I'll get all of these folded. Right, now they're folded in, we can start sticking the little tabs to the corresponding side on the other bit. So what we'll be doing is basically lifting the sides upwards, and then the tab will stick in to the next side to hold them together. And then eventually the extra flap you've got on top will just be folded over, and that is how the lid's going to stick on. All right, so let's grab my glue again. It's up to you if you want to use glue or double-sided tape. Again, I just think glue sticks that little bit firmer, although it does take longer to dry, so I might need to just stand here for a while whilst this dries. That's why I'm doing both sides at the same time, so it'll be a little bit quicker. Fold those up. Oh yeah, that is not going to dry quickly. Make sure your side goes up nice and straight. Nope, that's going to need me to hold it until it's dry. Or I think on my desk somewhere. Let's have a little look. Oh, I do. Amazing. I've got some paper clips. So I can probably be a little bit sneaky and just hold these in place with a paper clip until that glue's dry. Let's come slightly out of place. Right. As you can see, I'm holding them in place nice and easy, which means I can get on and glue the other side. And then I'll do the same thing with some paper clips. Hold them in place too. Obviously, if you're using tape, it will stick straight away rather than having to wait. So yeah, there are benefits and drawbacks to each method here. Right, there's all of my sides drying. That's fine, I'll leave them be. And we can start gluing the maze in the meantime. This is the one that was drawn on. As I said, I used a black pen, but one that blends in a little bit better would be a bit neater. And this is just because I found when I was testing this that as the foam moves about quite a lot and it's quite a bendy material, I was not sticking it exactly in the right place, which meant that some of my little gaps were too small for my ball bearing. So by adding the drawing on, I'll know exactly where to stick each little bit of the maze to make sure it's in the correct place. And I'll add the glue directly to the cardstock. Make sure you get it the right way round. A way to test is you're going in that circle like a C shape. So if you turned it around this way just for the point of this, you see this C, we're kind of filling that in. If it's easier though, you can glue the back of the foam instead. I'm trying to just add a thin line of glue in each of the bits that's going to have foam on it. So I'm not going all the way to the edge because the glue will smush out. Oops, I did there. It's not very easy when I'm holding it up to the camera. Because the glue will smush when we add the foam, and we don't want it to go into any of the bits there where it's not supposed to be. All in there, and then to the edge, and the edge, edge. Nearly there. Okay. You'll have one corner without glue. That's the bit where the ball will go in. So now I need to line it up. Carefully drop down. And then whilst your glue is still wet, just wiggle every single piece around until it lines up perfectly with your draw lines. Keep checking and double checking, because it might be that when you move one bit, something else moves out the way again. We need this to be super accurate, otherwise some of your gaps in the maze might not be big enough for the ball bearing. Best to take your time and be thorough and accurate at this point. This is your only chance you'll have, whilst the glue is wet, to move things about. If you notice any glue has come out, just use the edge of your finger or a weeding tool or a spatula or just something small and sharp just to go in and clear it up. Again, lumps of glue outside the maze can make it so that the ball bearing doesn't get all the way through where it's meant to go. That's looking good though. Now I need to add the other one on top. So more glue. It's best to wait until your first layer of foam is dry before you do this. I'm not going to because I want to get this video finished, but it's best to wait for it to dry. Otherwise, when you're adding the glue like I'm doing now, and you add the other bit on top, if your first layer is still wet, it might move about, and then you'll just have to line it all up again after all that effort. That's that one. And stick this one on top, and again, line it up as closely as you possibly can on every single part of the maze. I'm going to do this lying down. I mean, I'm not lying down. The maze is lying down. Oh dear. I think it does also help to pick it up and look from a different angle. You might notice when turning it around that something that looked like it was on perfect from one angle, actually when you turn it, you notice it's not quite aligned. That's looking good to me. Don't put your ball bearing in until everything is completely dry. I made that mistake when I made my test one of these when I was testing the pattern, and there was a little bit of glue I hadn't noticed which the ball bearing went through, and then it stuck to my cardstock. So I had a lovely maze with a ball bearing that wouldn't actually move. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'll leave that to dry. Let's see how a box is getting on. Okay, these sides look good. My paper clip's gone. I knew there was a reason I kept them on my desk. Okay, so now our 4 tops get folded down. I'll zoom in a little so you can see a tad easier. And we've got these 4 little triangles. These are going to go on one at a time to seal these corners. You see there's a gap in them at the moment, which is no good because the ball bearing might escape. And rather than just glue this on top, oops, you see, I told you my glue had spilt. Rather than just glue it on the top, this will add an extra little bit of stability. We'll work one at a time. Get one of these, glue the back, and then fold those down so that they're flat. This goes on and lines up to cover that gap and give those sides some stability. Stop. I've just remembered. I did this last time and then it didn't work. I really should make more notes as I go along. Okay, before you stick those sides down, the maze needs to go in, otherwise it won't fit. So let's do that. Glue on the bottom. And we'll put it in. Make sure it's nice and flat and that it lines up along the bottom of your square. Gosh, I can't believe I nearly made that mistake again. And add the ball bearing, just the one. Just make sure, yeah, that's a good size. That's going to work nicely. And now I'm going to do the sides. Oh dear. This is what happens when I step outside my comfort zone and do something different. Right, one. Do the next one. They're all the same, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. That's all four with glue on. I'll need to hold them in place a little until my glue dries. I have noticed one of my sides I didn't stick that straight on here. You can see there's a little bit overlapping. That's what I get for being impatient and using paper clips instead of just holding them in place. But it'll still work just fine. And then last but not least, this will go on top. There's a slight lip, so this is slightly bigger than this, just to cover up all the sides. And again, we need to make sure there's no gaps in the glue, otherwise the ball bearings could come out. Gently push down every single side. Give it a really good stick, no holes in it. I'm really annoyed that I was messy with my glue there. I might see if I can find a sequin or something to go on the top to hide that. But there we go. Once that has all dried, let's just hold it down. It's coming off a bit. Once that's all dried, your maze will be perfectly ready for you to start playing with. My maze is now all dry and I found some little sticky gemstones to cover up mostly that glue smudge. My ball is down where it's supposed to start and look how wonderfully that works. This is such a fun little gift to make with the Cricut and something a little bit different to normal. I'm going to do it. Come on, yay! If you enjoyed this maze game, you might also enjoy this other tutorial which I have on my YouTube channel or on my website. It's a similar concept, only this time there are 3 ball bearings in, and the aim is to get the balls into all of the holes at the same time. I am not very good at this one. The tutorial shows how you can add any picture into the middle so you can customize them with a favourite photo or a picture or anything you want. So there we go, that's my 2 little ball bearing games for something a little bit different and a little bit more interactive and fun to make with a Cricut machine. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and free SVGs. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!